Hello, algebra students. This is a lecture on multiplying polynomials, which is section 8.2. Remember, a polynomial is a variable, like x, a number, like 2, or the combination of these two things using multiplication, 2x. That would be a monomial, right? Or we could even have an exponent on a variable, something like 2x cubed. So all of these are monomials, and a polynomial is one of these things or more of these things being connected using addition or subtraction. So a polynomial would be something like 2x cubed minus 2x plus x minus 2. 2x cubed minus 2x squared plus x minus 2. This would be an example of a polynomial written in standard form because the exponents are decreasing. We could also just have something like 2x cubed minus 8, or even something like negative 8 is considered a polynomial because negative 8 is a number. And remember, a polynomial is one monomial or more than one monomial being added or subtracted. So what are we doing today? We are multiplying a polynomial like this by another polynomial like this. We're going to keep it pretty basic in today's lecture, but that is the goal. So first question would be, have you guys ever multiplied polynomials before? And the answer to that is yes, you guys have. We've done so in a pretty basic form, and it has looked like this. If you took x times x plus 2, you guys should be screaming right now, you would use the distributive property, right, to multiply these things. And the distributive property is an example of multiplying polynomials. To multiply these things, of course, we would do x times x, which you guys know is x squared, and x times 2, which you guys know is 2x, and that would be our answer. So conceptually, it's very similar to this, what we're doing. This is actually an example of multiplying polynomials, like I said, only this is an example where you have a one-termed polynomial multiplied by a two-termed polynomial. We call this a monomial and a binomial. But most of the multiplying we're going to be doing is just a little bit more complicated than this. So this is another example of a polynomial times a polynomial, more specifically a binomial, two terms, times another binomial, two terms. And the process for this is going to be to FOIL this. Okay? This is a term that all math teachers use to multiply a binomial times a binomial, and you guys will do this all the time. You guys are going to multiply so many binomials by so many binomials throughout your math career. It's something that's very common and practical and used in many different mathematical applications. So what does it mean to FOIL something, right? It's actually like a acronym. Okay, what it stands for is you multiply the first one in one binomial times the first one in the other binomial. Then you're going to multiply the outside one of one binomial, that'd be this, times the outside of the other one, right? This x and this negative 3 are the ones on the outside. So I'm going to mark these in red. So first times first, this is the first one in the first binomial, and this is the first one in the second binomial. When you multiply those, you would get x squared. Then you would multiply the outside one. This is on the outside of the first binomial, and negative 3 is on the outside of the second binomial. When you multiply those, you would get negative 3x. Then you are going to do the inside one. So 2 is on the inside of the first binomial, and x is on the inside of the second binomial. When you multiply those, you would get positive 2x. And then you'll do the last one of the first binomial times the last one of the second binomial, and you'll get negative 6. So typically, we're not going to write it in a vertical format. Typically, we would write it like this: x squared minus 3x plus 2x minus 6 when we FOIL it. And then we would combine our like terms if there are any, and oftentimes the middle two terms will be like. Negative 3x and 2x would combine to make negative 1x, because negative 3 and 2 make negative 1. X squared minus x minus 6, and that would be your final answer. So that would be successfully multiplying a binomial times a binomial by the FOIL method. The FOIL. They get perhaps a little bit more complicated than that, simply because it's not always just x. Here we have x cubed and we have x squared. But the process is going to be the exact same. And in fact, you guys all should remember how to multiply x to the third times x squared, because we just had a lesson on that. And remember, when you multiply with the same base, like x and x, you simply add their exponents. So x to the third times x squared, that would be first times first. And we would get x to the fifth. Then you would do the outside one times the other outside one, and that would be 2x to the third. Because 2 times x to the third is 2x to the third. Inside times inside, that would be negative 5 times x squared, making negative 5x squared. And then the last one times the other last one is negative 10. So that is the FOIL process. It only works when you have two terms, 1, 2, times another two terms, 1, 2. We call it foiling, and this is what it means. I also just want to tell you this in case you don't want to use the FOIL method. You can think of this as just taking every term, so here's the first term, and multiplying it by everything in the other polynomial. So we multiplied x to the third times x squared and times 2. Then multiply the next term times every term in the other binomial. Multiply negative 5 times x squared to get this one, and then negative 5 times 2 to get that one. They give you the same answer. Really, that's all you're doing when you're foiling. They're the exact same thing. I don't care which way you think of it. I just want you to know that this term is often used by myself or other math teachers to describe this process. In this problem, none of the terms were like. We had an x to the fifth, an x to the third, an x squared, and a no x. So we can't combine any like terms. That's just our final answer. Go ahead and pause it here and try one more of these, see how you do. And then we'll go over it here in a second. Okay, so with this one, once again, first times first, x squared times x. Remember, this is like an x to the first. Then you would add their exponents and get x to the third. Outside times outside, x squared times 4 would be 4x squared. Then we're going to have inside times inside, negative 3 times x makes negative 3x. And then the last one in one binomial times the last one in the other binomial make negative 12. We would look to combine our like terms here, but there are not any. Most of the time, your middle two terms will combine, but not here. So that would be your final answer. So this is a lecture on multiplying polynomials, specifically a binomial times a binomial. We will explore non-binomial, like more complicated things in a future lesson. But for today, this is a binomial times a binomial by a process called FOIL or foiling. Thanks, guys, and let me know if you have any questions.